Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Newsflash. Thank you so much for joining us here. On today's show, we have Iran. They've breached a critical limit under nuclear fuel. They are now taking another big step to making a nuclear weapon. And I mean, duh, of course they are. How New Zealand's Antifa movement is trying to prevent another Christchurch. Joe Biden's worst supporters are coming for Kamala Harris inside the AOC Border Patrol text message Facebook group, racism and sexism fiasco. We'll take a look at some media news where Barry Weiss and the Washington Post are both in my special, I guess, kind of hot water today. And maybe we will have time to fit in some other stories today. So that'll be very, very fun. And I appreciate you for coming by today and talking with us about the news. I mean, it's going to be very funny. We got a lot of stuff to get to about this whole Border Patrol stuff. It's very, very, very insane. Yeah, and by the way, interesting fact now that we all know about AOC's Border Patrol concentration camp remarks, and now more than 140 Holocaust and genocide experts think that Ocasio-Cortez should be allowed to call migrant detention centers concentration camps. They've all signed a letter about it, so it kind of adds some that adds some credence to what you're trying to say, at least. Another thing that's pretty interesting, but of course we have to start today with Iran, folks. Iran has exceeded a key limitation on how much nuclear fuel it can possess under the 2015 International Pact curbing its nuclear program, effectively declaring that it would no longer respect an agreement that President Trump abandoned more than a year ago, the IAEA reported on Monday. And yes, of course, they would do that. It makes perfect and complete sense. And honestly, if I lived in Iran and if I wanted to see the safety, if I cared about the safety of Iran, which, I mean, I would like to preferably see massive, I like to see Iranian lives not just get massively blown up and destroyed out of nowhere. But I think that it's going to be, it's very hard to say that it's very hard to blame them for doing this, because obviously the U.S. pulled out first. They stuck to the deal very intensely, and now they're going to build nuclear weapons. It's just the way the world works. I think it's something that you expect happening. Is something you expect to happen, and again, shows the complete incompetency of not just Donald Trump, but the entire neoconservative wing, or pretty much all of the Republican Party, who's been decrying this deal for years. And now, what do? They pull out of it, and Iran ends up with nuclear weapons. When under Obama's deal, there were no nuclear weapons. I mean, at least for the time period, there's a much better chance that under Obama, if we just stick to the track that Obama had, we wouldn't have had nuclear weapons. Because I know conservatives are probably thinking, oh yeah, the sunset clause, that they could start to build it back up again after a certain period of time. But I mean, granted, it is possible, but what do you think is more likely, and what do you think is a better alternative? Them building it up maybe in 10 to 15 years, or them building it up in how many? 4 years. 4 years. What do you prefer? And if you establish a good relationship with Iran, preferably, maybe, possibly, they won't need to develop nuclear weapons. If you talk them down the ledge after having done a 10-year successful deal with them, I think it's very, very, very much less likely that they would decide to build nuclear weapons. And the thing is, a lot of people in America have been incredibly misinformed about the subject. They've listened to a bunch of crap news and a bunch of crap intelligence sources on this, and that has really, really hurt their understanding of the situation. And that is something that we really know now today. Let's get the details of this here. The breach of the limitation, which restricted Iran's stockpile of low-enriched uranium to about 660 pounds, does not by itself give the country the material to produce a nuclear weapon. But it is the strongest signal yet that Iran is moving to abandon the limits and restore a far larger stockpile that took the United States and 5 other nations years to send to Iran abroad. Like, this was years and years in the making. And President Donald Trump and I don't just put this on the shoulders of President Donald Trump. I put this on the shoulders of leaders in the House, leaders in the Senate, and pretty much the entire conservative movement. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, it is completely your fault. And good luck trying to get it out of their hands now, because you stabbed them in the back. A deal was done with them that was a successful deal. They were not building any nuclear weapons. I mean, if you want to believe the UN, I mean, of course, yeah, the UN's lying, sure. But there was no evidence ever found by any credible source that Iran had any kind of intention to build nuclear weapons. But, of course, Trump and his defense contractor buddies, John Bolton, his donors over at Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all those places, they wanted to move things along. They wanted to this deal. The big problem they had with this deal for real is that it would get in Mike Pompeo too, John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. It would get in the way for them of trying to launch what their longtime dream has been and always will be, I feel like, which is a nuclear war with Iran. That's what it's always been. That's what they're going to try to keep it as, and it's just going to stay that way. So, the developments were first reported in the semi-official Fars News Agency, citing an informed source, Mohammad Javad Zarif, the Iranian Foreign Minister of Iran, was later quoted confirming the news, according to another semi-official outlet, the Iranian Student News Agency, so the ISNA there. It's pretty much, we know that they're, again, taking the steps to build these nuclear weapons. And again, this is because the conservatives, and Republicans in general, they are not interested in peace here. They're interested in war because it benefits their donors, it benefits the corporations, it benefits all those people, and they're doing everything they can, hyping up explosions, flying drones, possibly even into Iranian airspace to get shot down, and getting rid of a nuclear deal, destabilizing the region, making another nuclear power in Iran. You're handing them the opportunity to give nuclear weapons, and if they make them now, you're not going to get them back because they are not in the right mind to negotiate with you. And Trump's saying, oh yeah, maybe I may want to negotiate a nuclear deal, some kind of nuclear deal with Hassan Rouhani now. I think that may be the time for that. The absolute incompetence and idiocy of these people is unparalleled. And at least some of them, you really get the sense they don't want a nuclear deal. They don't want diplomacy. They don't want peace. They don't want war, because war is beneficial for their pockets. And that is the thing that we're seeing over and over again through the consistent pattern of actions. Every time the United States has taken an action on Iran, it has led towards war. Every single solitary time. And they want regime change. They want to scare Americans into it, saying Iran's going to build nuclear weapons. Iran shot down one of the drones that very well could have been in its own airspace. And what do you think? By the way, I always want to put the shoe on the other foot here. What do you think we would do if Iran flew a drone in our airspace? We would freak the F out. And by the way, this is something that is never reported in the media. What do you think the United States would do if Iran banned all medicine from entering our country? People have literally died because the U.S. has done that. It's been sent to, they sued, they sent it to the International Human Rights Court when the U.S. blocked medicine the first time. It was appealed, and then the United States just left the International Human Rights Court and went about, or the agency that decides these things, a combination of all the countries, they reprimanded the International Human Rights Court because, the U.S. should do whatever it wants, and international law doesn't apply to us, and we just get to have the free reign of the entire world, and went back to killing sick Iranians, pretty much. It's what they're doing there. It's insane, it's ridiculous, it's dangerous, it's scary, and it's unbelievable that this, just the absolute mind warp that some people in the media have on this, because that's what they're doing. The United States literally sanctioning medicine entering Iran. It's having real health effects on people. What? It's amazing that Iran didn't pull out of the nuclear deal as soon as the United States pulled out. But the fact that they've been in this and trying to make peace, and not starting a war, not taking even more action, is probably pretty commendable. It's pretty commendable that they've done that because of incessant provocations made by the neocons in power in this government, trying to get one thing and one thing only, and that is war. That's all they've been trying to do from jump. From the first time they got an opportunity to get in here, they wanted war, and that's what they ended up getting in the end. So, yeah. It was unclear how much the action would escalate tensions between Washington and Tehran after the downing of an American surveillance drone in June nearly resulted in military strikes. But it returns the focus to Iran's two-decade pursuit of technology that could produce a nuclear weapon, exactly where it was before President Barack Obama and President Hassan Rouhani struck the Iranian deal 4 years ago. That's from the New York Times there. And that's pretty much sums up the situation in a much more concise and neutral way. But the fact is, that's what they're doing here. And you have to realize what's going on. A continued steps towards war. Every single step taken by this government, the neocons in power, and Donald Trump, has been towards war with Iran all the time. Provoking them, trying to get some kind of rise out of them. None of that has been covered in the media, but a drone that's shot down that's possibly in Iranian airspace, and we go crazy. Meanwhile, we're literally killing them by stopping medicine from entering the Iranian borders. Like, it is insane. It is absolutely insane. It just makes you, especially with the 4th of July coming up, it makes you very depressed to be in America. Like, this is the stuff that we're doing to other countries. We're intentionally trying to start wars for the benefit of a few wealthy billionaires and elites, and killing millions of people, both here and in Iran, and other places as well, from other places as well, probably, in the process. It is despicable. Absolutely despicable. All right. We are now going to turn into another despicable thing that some people are trying to stop. Christchurch was our worst nightmare realized, said Anu Kulati. She's a veteran activist and organizer in New Zealand. She immigrated to New Zealand from the UK in 2003, but her family is originally from the Indian subcontinent. Though she didn't feel the same intense racism in her new home as she did in her old one, she told Splinter that she could still see its presence in the treatment of migrant workers and immigrants. In 2018, Kaladi found this is, by the way, from Splinter, from an interview with Sophie Weiner. She found it called Love Aotearoa. Aotearoa. I'm going to say Aotearoa. Love Aotearoa, hate racism. Aotearoa is the indigenous Maori people name for New Zealand. To fight against the prejudice she saw rearing its head in her country. The organization mounted a protest when Canadian white nationalists Stefan Molyneux and Lauren Southern came to speak in New Zealand, successfully getting the event canceled, so shout out to them. But generally, anti-fascist activism was on the fringes of the country's political scene. That changed all in March. As I'm sure you know, a 28-year-old Australian man shot and killed 51 people at 2 mosques in the New Zealand city of Christchurch. Suddenly, hundreds of people were turning up in anti-fascist meetings instead of a few dozen, and large marches targeting white supremacy were held in major cities. Activists grappling with their own grief over the attack were thrilled by the momentum, but weren't sure the best way to harness it. Months later, veterans of the anti-fascist movement are still trying to figure out how to direct this swell of energy without alienating mainstream Kiwis who aren't familiar with their style of direct action. To make things difficult, the Christchurch attack wasn't the result of a single local hate group. Instead, it was born of decentralized online white supremacist movement in which an increasing number of people self-radicalized. The shooter wasn't even from New Zealand. And activists really have been left asking, how do you tackle a global community of hate from a small country at the bottom of the world? It's not just the rest of the globe which was shocked by the fact that far-right massacre could happen in New Zealand. For many within the country, both the nature of the shooter's beliefs and the style of the attack he carried out were completely unexpected. And that is, to me, very, very interesting that we see that today. Because it's another major sign, as a step in the right direction. That, I mean, again, as Marianne Williamson referenced in, or kind of touched on in her debate speech, she said that New Zealand is the best place in the world for a child to grow up. Like, the point is, people are just, I mean, again, it feels like, at least in America, another reminder of how absolutely stupid we can be sometimes as a country, and just the inability to come to terms with something and actually get behind it and actually understand what is going on here. And it's very telling, I think, that